Good morning and welcome to Munich. Welcome to our live training session here from Zebener Street, from the headquarters and training facilities of Bayern Munich. And we have a very unusual training session in store for you. Unusual because if you look closely at the faces of the players here, you'll see that some of them, if not most of them, are very unfamiliar. Of course, we are in the middle of a break for national team qualification, for the European Championships, and of course for the non-European foreigners in the team, other qualification tournaments and national team dates, which means that only a handful, really not even that, of players are available to Pep Guardiola, who usually feature in this squad. On the pitch today from the pro team, only the two goalkeepers, Tom Starke and Sven Ulreich, training in the background, and then three players, Xabi Alonso, Sebastian Rode and Philipp Lahm. Those three here in this group with Sven Ulreich and Tom Starke. Everyone else either injured and still working individually for the comeback, and we'll talk about the injured players as we go along, or of course traveling. Pep Guardiola, with a difficult job. Of course, these 10 days or so, most internationals return next Wednesday, won't give Pep Guardiola the opportunity to practice many things tactically, but it will give him the opportunity to have a look at these young gentlemen here. There are a total, if I'm not mistaken, of 8 youth players of the under-23s of the Bayern reserves training with the pro team today, and another 4 players from the under-19s. The players, we'll talk about one or two as we go along, and I'll point out those who, let's say, are a little closer to the pro team than others. That would be Sinan Kurt, for instance. Also Lukas Scholl, of course, son of Mehmet Scholl, who already featured in training quite a few times for the pro team. This is this famous exercise 5 against 2, or rondo as it's called now in Munich, since the arrival of the Spanish coach and his assistants, and it'll be interesting to see how well these young players do. Usually we have the masterful skills of Thiago, Robben, Alonso, Rafinha and so on. Let's see how these young lads fare here in front of the watchful eyes of Pep Guardiola and his assistants. So this is the aforementioned group with Sinan Kurt, Philipp Lahm, Xabi Alonso, Sebastian Rode, Sven Ulreich, Tom Starke, Lukas Scholl. All of the remaining professionals in this group here. You can see how much faster this ball is played. It's pouring down rain in Munich. Yesterday we had somewhere around 1,500 fans at the public training session. A lot less today for understandable reasons. And even if it's the last public training session, we assume in a while, the weather and the absence, of course, of most star players has deterred most fans from coming, but there's still, as you can see, plenty of reason to visit Siebener Street on a training day. The kids can take pictures with Bernie. The star players here usually take their time to pose for photos with the fans, to sign autographs. Even though, of course, today might be a little more difficult with only 3 or 4 real famous options on the pitch. But usually always worth a visit here. The training facilities at Munich Siebener Street, and particularly, of course, in holidays. Lots and lots of fans visit the Siebener Street. You can see in the background Leo Weinkauf, under-19s goalkeeper, training with Toni Tapalovic, while the 2 goalkeepers practice here in the rondo exercise, the passing exercise. In the background you can see the Youth Academy of Bayern Munich there, by the way, with a player looking out of the window. And like all the others of the Youth Academy, hoping and praying one day they'll have the opportunity to play for this Bayern team. Several of these youth players, Sinan Kurt, for instance, and Lukas Scholl, as I mentioned earlier, have been training with the pro team for months now. And it was recently decided that Kurt, Julian Green and Gianluca Gaudino return. This is Lukas Scholl, that they should return. Here's Sinan Kurt at the center and train with the reserve team a little more to gain a little more match practice on a professional or semi-professional level. Bayern Munich's reserve team playing in the 4th division. Express goal is to achieve promotion and play in the 3rd division. It's the highest league any reserve team can play in. In Germany, the rule is that there has to be 1 division between the pro and amateur team. Funnily, the 2 top teams in Munich, Bayern and 1860, both in the 4th division. Those are the only derbies the Munich fans get to see. Little switch of a place here so that the grass at the pitch isn't put under too much strain. Here is Bayern captain Philipp Lahm. Seems as if Lahm might return to playing a few more games on the fullback position this season, with Bayern Munich's long list of very gifted midfield players and pretty short list of gifted fullbacks. Lahm's qualities possibly at least needed a little more often on the wings in defense than in holding midfield or on the wing. Of course, you probably heard and read all about it. Philipp Lahm actually played, particularly now in the pre-season, a couple of games on the right wing, basically in the Arjen Robben position, and he, funnily enough, commented on his performances, which were actually very good, and he said, just wait for me to pull into the center and do my Arjen Robben left-footed rocket on goal. Robben has to be real careful from now on. That was, of course, a joke, and I don't expect to see Philipp Lahm on the wing very often this season, particularly now that Bayern have bought 2 potential candidates for those positions, Douglas Costa and now most recently Kingsley Coman, both of which are obviously not in Munich. It's a big weekend for the national teams. Manuel Neuer, Jerome Boateng, Mario Götze and Thomas Müller are going to play 2 European Championship qualification matches. Friday, Germany welcome Poland to the stadium in Frankfurt. Interestingly enough, Poland is table leader in the German qualification group. So with a win, and that is the express goal, Neuer, Boateng, Götze, Müller and all the other German internationals can take over the table lead and take it away from their Bayern colleague Robert Lewandowski. Poland playing Germany first, and then next Monday, home game for Poland in Warsaw against Gibraltar. That should be an easy 3-pointer there. David Alaba playing with Austria. Fantastic qualification so far, and his comeback, his return to the Austrian national team was the topic of the country in Austria. He is the star player there, David Alaba. And the Austrian national team doing really well. 6 games, 5 wins and a draw, 16 points. They play Moldova, the table last team in their group, on Saturday, and then play Sweden, the table second team. So important games for David Alaba. Arjen Robben play Iceland. Arjen Robben and his Dutch team play Iceland and Turkey. These qualification matches extremely important. Holland, with a bad start to the qualification, needs to win both games. Better situation for Juan Bernat and his Spanish team, which is on second place behind Slovakia in their qualification group. The non-European foreigners with test games, Douglas Costa is traveling for Brazil. It's a little US tour. In 2 days, Brazil play Costa Rica in Harrison, and then they play against the US in Foxborough 3 days later. So that's actually those are the last 2 test games Brazil play before their World Cup qualification begins in October. And the same goes for Arturo Vidal. He plays Paraguay with Chile on September 5th. Joshua Kimmich, also traveling with the German under-21s, test match against Denmark, and then a qualification game for the under-21s European Championship against Azerbaijan. And then Kingsley Coman, the most recent addition to Bayern Munich's squad, he plays with France's under-21s against the under-21s of Iceland, and then a test match against Brazil's under-21. So the travelling Bayern players with 2 games each pretty much, with the exception I think of Arturo Vidal. Not a good opportunity for Pep Guardiola to practice with his new team, but again, we only have a few new signings at Bayern Munich. Therefore, integration of the new players should not be too difficult. Most of the Bayern pros have, of course, played pre-season together extensively. Here's Xabi Alonso. The football experts in Germany hailed his performance as a special one on the weekend, where he played, some kind of a mixed positional game, somewhere between centre-back and holding midfielder. Centre-back when Leverkusen, Bayern's Saturday opponent, was in possession. Holding midfielder basically to initiate the attacks of Bayern Munich when the Reds were in possession. He, of course, prepared the door opener, the 1-0 scored by Thomas Müller with a fantastic opening pass across half of the pitch to Douglas Costa, who then played a centre ball. It was a very unusual Bayern lineup because of the problems in defense. Midi Benatia injured, but he should return shortly. And Jerome Boateng banned, but only for that one game on Saturday against the Leverkusen. And even in the absence of these centre-backs, Bayern Munich basically didn't give any chances away to Leverkusen, with very few exceptions. Really the only dangerous goal chance, the only moment where Manuel Neuer was seriously threatened, was when Hakan Çalhanoğlu fired a free kick on target that struck the crossbar. Apart from that, very commanding performance by Bayern Munich yet again, who share the table lead, basically they're table second, with Borussia Dortmund, who've had what some consider a surprisingly good start. Not only victories in the Bundesliga and the DFB Cup, but of course also the qualification for the UEFA Cup, what used to be called the UEFA Cup, the Europa League. Good season there for Dortmund, and the fans in Germany obviously elated that, even if it's very early in this season, so far at least, we have a couple of teams doing really well at the top of the table, a couple of teams with a good start to the season. Bayern Munich hope to extend that good start next weekend, but so far they progressed in the cup and won all 3 of their Bundesliga games, even if Saturday's top match at home in the Allianz Arena against Leverkusen was certainly not easy. Sebastian Rode came on in that game. Thiago and Juan Bernat celebrated their starting formation debut. And there's a few other players that will hopefully return at some point soon. Thiago may be the first player we should talk about. Yesterday he discontinued training halfway through. That was a precautionary measure, and without 100% security here, I can tell you, I assume at least that Thiago is training today behind closed doors upstairs. As you know, Thiago was injured for a really long time, joined Bayern in July 2013, then in March of 2014, nearly 1.5 years ago, he tore a tendon in his knee. After 5 weeks already, he celebrated his comeback, but the same injury prevented him then from joining the World Cup. He missed the pre-season. His next comeback then was in October 2014. Again, same injury, third time, knee problems, and that kept him out till April of 2015. He's finally now played a couple of games, and on Saturday he featured in the starting formation. It's only natural, I think, that he might still suffer to a certain extent from the aftermath of that game, of that performance he showed there against Leverkusen. And Bayern are just taking it a little easy with Thiago this week. Javi Martinez celebrates his birthday today. Let's see, we might catch a glimpse of him or some of the other injured players throughout this training. It's not uncommon for Bayern Munich's injured players to train while the team is training. It depends to a certain extent on the availability of the assistant coaches and the exercises conducted, but Jan Kirchhoff, for instance, who underwent surgery on his heel, he's working on his comeback. He's already able to sprint again, so his return to the team training should occur at some point in the next couple of weeks. Holger Badstuber, of course, one of the players the fans constantly ask about. He's also working on his comeback. He's been out for a long time, as we all know, but he's still basically indoors behind closed doors, but also progressing. And then the yeah, possibly a biggest question mark that we all ask ourselves is what will happen with Franck Ribéry. Good news there came from Matthias Sammer a couple of days ago when he said that Ribéry is actually improving slightly now. He has one of these unpleasant situations for any football player where you're not really sure what's going on, not really sure what's wrong. He experienced pain, ongoing pain in his ankle for a long time. He was in rehab or in recovery for 174 days now, so nearly half a year. Franck Ribéry has been out with an injury that initially was deemed to last about 4 days. Matthias Sammer said it would be unrealistic to talk about a specific comeback date. The injury is complicated, but his condition is definitely improving, as are the spirits of Franck Ribéry, and Pep Guardiola, of course, hopes Ribéry will be able to return shortly. But, of course, Bayern Munich reacted to last season's problems the injuries of Ribéry and Robben posed, and have now hired two potential wingers with Douglas Costa and Kingsley Coman. Sebastian Rode, usually a candidate for holding midfield or a fullback position. He's hoping to gather a few more games, get a little more match practice than last season, where he already proved a valuable addition to this squad and a great help in many situations. So much experience and success in that picture just now. Same goes with this one. Pep Guardiola proves he still has it. Amazing statistics in the Bundesliga. 71 games under his command. 57 wins, 7 draws, 7 defeats. If you take into account that most of those defeats came after Bayern Munich had already celebrated championships, it puts that statistic into perspective. Pep Guardiola has yet to lose a game as the coach of Bayern Munich before the winter break in the Bundesliga. In the last 2 years, Bayern Munich lost exactly 2 games before the winter break. Twice against Borussia Dortmund in the Super Cup, and twice against Manchester City in the Champions League when Bayern Munich had already qualified. Let's see. This year, so to speak, started, or this football season started with a good omen, so to speak, as Bayern Munich lost the Super Cup for the 3rd time running, this time against Wolfsburg. But if that remains the only competitive defeat alongside a loss in the Champions League after the team's already qualified, I think everyone's going to be happy. Pep Guardiola does not know how it feels to lose a league game between August and December in the Bundesliga. Pretty amazing statistics. Bayern actually had the chance this season, and came close and did a good job of becoming the first ever team in German football history to stay at the top of the league table for an entire year. Not so much a season, but a year. They had the chance when this season started, because they'd of course been at the top of the table for the entire second half of the last season. So they had this chance of being table leaders throughout 2015. Unfortunately, Borussia Dortmund scored a few more goals in the second game, and now they're up by a goal. The goal difference, I believe, 11-1 for Borussia Dortmund after 3 games. For Bayern, it's 10-1. That prevents Pep Pep Guardiola's team from being at the very top of the league table. Not that that's a reason to complain, but it's a chance, an opportunity missed, I suppose. Let's see what happens here. Pep Guardiola kicks off, and we are fortunate enough to watch a little bit of a football game here. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this, and let me just check and see if what I'm telling you is actually right. Usually the players in green, when these exercises are played, are free agents. It's basically Team Blue against Team Red. So as you can see, this is an exercise in which, well, there's no goals here. As you can see, it's basically red against blue. The four players in green are the free agents here. This is all about winning possession and holding on to possession with very little space. You'll notice when Team Blue plays, the players in green double pass. Here you have it, Philipp Lahm in possession. He'll pass it out here. There you go, everyone in blue. As soon as there's a turnover, here's one. I'm not quite sure if that actually counts as a turnover. No. As soon as there's a turnover, you'll notice when the Team Red plays together, Team Red will also play along with the players in green. Again, they are free agents. Here we go. Team Red now in possession, if only for a short time. So now let's Lukas Scholl pass forward, and he uses the green players. Pep Guardiola not particularly happy with the intensity here, apparently, of this exercise. But it's another one of these exercises, and that's so typical of Pep Guardiola. Usually the Bayern players are basically under stress when they are conducting any exercise here. Bit of an explanation to the youth players of exactly what Pep Guardiola expects them to do. To give the players as little time as possible and to keep practicing this transitional game. Possession, regaining possession, win, lose, fight for it again, hold on to possession. That's crucial in the modern game, and that's the basis for a lot of different exercises that we see here at Sebener Street. It's a great exercise, of course, for the goalkeepers as well, who practice their passing game under pressure. This is certainly an exercise Manuel Neuer would conduct with the team if he was here. But certainly something that Sven Ulreich will benefit from as well. We expect to see him tomorrow. There's a test game that Bayern Munich play at 7 o'clock against Regensburg. Highlights on FCB TV, match report on the Bayern website later on in the evening. And that'll be interesting in the absence of Bayern's first team, but a great opportunity again for these young players here to play a game under professional circumstances, and of course also an opportunity to show Pep Guardiola how skillful they are. Beautiful piece of skill there by Xabi Alonso. Great to see in this entire training session how involved and motivated players like Xabi Alonso and Philipp Lahm and Sebastian Rode as well, despite the fact that they're training with all of these youth players. And that case in the case of Alonso and Lahm, you're talking about Champions League winners, multiple championship winners. In Alonso's case, Champions League winner, of course, with various clubs as well. World champion, European champion. Still, every day, passion and dedication in training. Sebastian Rode as well. Fantastic training ethic, this young player. Also a robust physique, hardly any injuries whatsoever. Now, Pep Guardiola obviously happy with this exercise. There's a lot of bravo and calls very good. Talking to his assistant there, fitness coach Lorenzo Buenaventura. Talk about dedication. He lives just across the road to be as close as possible. This is Dominic Torrent. And not in our picture now is Hermann Gellan, but he's somewhere here, and he'll be one of those people who are extremely helpful for Pep Guardiola now. Great expert of Bayern Munich's youth. There he is. He's responsible for all those Schweinsteigers and Lahms and Müllers and Alabas, and he knows a lot about the youth, and he knows how to shape youth players, so he will have had quite an influence on the selection of youth players here in Bayern's training squad for the upcoming week or so. I can tell you from the under-19s, Niklas Tarnaert's playing here, Valentin Micheli, the captain, Marcel Leip and Nicola Della Schiava. We have 7 or 8 players from the reserves teams. Here's Lukas Scholl, Daniel Hegler, Yannick Günzel, Herbert Paul, just to name a few. Sinan Kurt, of course, is there. Lahm now part of Team Red, so the roles on the pitch are constantly changing too. So Alonso's back in green, as is Rode. Those are the 2 field players, and then Tom Starke and Sven Ulreich on either side of the pitch to keep the ball in play. All of this looks so fun and easy, but if you've ever played or trained in a football club, I'm sure you will have conducted similar exercises in the past, probably not as quickly and not as ferociously as the Bayern players are showing in some scene here, but it's a tough exercise because there's literally no goal. The goal here is just basically to stay in possession for as long as possible, and if you lose it, to regain it. So the longer this lasts, the more it does feel as if it's a never-ending uphill battle. Again, of course, these players absolutely fit, but we can see it after every training session, even if the exercises, and you'll see as we go along, nearly all of them involve a ball. No matter how fun, how enjoyable it is for the players, it's also tough. At least it's not over 30 degrees as it was in the last couple of days and weeks here in Munich. Amateur goalkeeper Leo Weinkauf with Toni Tapalovic. He's been working with Manuel Neuer for a couple of years. In part responsible for shaping what many consider to be the best goalkeeper the world's ever seen. Sounds like a bold statement, but in the case of Manuel Neuer, it's hard to disagree. He'll be playing for Germany in these important Euro qualification matches on the weekend. Let's have a look at some of these exercises. Well, Tom Starke and Sven Ulreich now joining in the more specific goalkeeping exercises, apparently. That probably means the players will conduct some passing or shooting exercises in a minute or so. We'll see what happens, what Pep Guardiola has up his sleeve. Starke, immensely popular within the Bayern team. Man who's one of these people you need in the squad. Obviously a fringe player, but someone with just a great character who adds to the team spirit within the team. And there are rumors that Tom Starke might not only end his career here, but even stay on afterwards in some shape and form at Bayern Munich. Certainly conceivable going by his popularity, not only in the team but in the entire club. Stark and Ulreich now obviously going to train with Tapalovic, while Weinkauf joins in the full team training. It's always something new, and there's always some surprises in training. So important for the players. Read an interview recently with a couple coaches actually who talked about the difficulty of keeping their players entertained. Nowadays you need to exercise with the ball so much, but you don't want these training exercises or training sessions in general to be too monotonous. So you have to find new exercises all the time, but that's what Pep Guardiola and his assistants work on all the time. Even though this doesn't seem to be the most original exercise. I think the player's just going to hammer a couple shots on goal. Should be entertaining too, though. About 2 weeks ago, the news came through that some of Bayern Munich's younger squad players, Green, Kurt, Gaudino, would train with the reserves a few more times or more regularly, and it came across as if they were basically relegated to... Sinan Kurt, what a goal! As if they were relegated to the reserve team. But I think these training sessions prove it's not as if Pep Guardiola isn't interested in playing with the youngsters and training with them. On the contrary, and his track record at Barcelona proves that he's highly interested in integrating young players to professional squads and making these players better. But of course, the reality right now of the Bayern squad is that a player like, take Sinan Kurt for instance, will have a really tough time making it into the starting formation. Even making it into the squad on the weekend is tough for these young players with so much talent, so much experience in the squad. So it simply makes sense, I think, for them to play a competitive football. That's what Pep Guardiola said too. But the Bayern fans can certainly rest assured that Pep Guardiola, here's Dominic Torrent, and all the other Bayern coaches and assistant coaches and scouts all keep a very close look at the youngsters at the club. There's a couple of young talents that were added to the squad. Joshua Kimmich, who's traveling with the German under-21s, is a good example. It's a decent left-footed shot as well. Again, last season, at times, Bayern Munich only had 17 or 18 players in the entire squad, and that was a situation that Pep Guardiola had to cope with for a really long time, and a situation, interesting little chip there by Lukas Scholl, and a situation that involved even these young players. So even with Kurt and Gaudino, only 17 or 18 players, very different situation now, where you have 20, 21 professional players, experienced, interesting, promising, depending on their age, however way you want to describe them, but just not enough space for the really young talents. Just not enough opportunity, should I say, for the really young talents to gain enough match practice to really be involved realistically in the Bayern Pro team. Therefore, an understandable decision. Seems as if we're already nearing the end of this training session. The players have been out for about an hour or so. Pep Guardiola and Dominic Torrent, it seems, have had enough. I might be wrong, but it looks as if this training session is coming to a close after an hour. Again, tomorrow evening, already a test game for Bayern Munich. It's very possible that this training session was cut a little short because of that. Certainly going to be an interesting game against an interesting opponent of Jan Regensburg. And I assume that's why Pep Guardiola didn't want to train too hard and too long today. So football tomorrow evening for Bayern Munich. Football for nearly all of the Bayern players traveling with their national teams on the weekend. We'll stay on air for another minute or two and see if Pep Guardiola doesn't have another surprise up his sleeve for us, but I don't assume so. So I'll check out and say goodbye. You can see in the background here there's some individual exercise. I think I can detect Philipp Lahm and Sebastian Rode closing in on a free kick exercise there, but this is all basically fun and laughter and something that they like to do and enjoy doing, not so much an actual training exercise. We'll see if we can get a little closer. If not, we'll end this training session, which I think is coming to a close anyway in a couple of minutes. Time for me to say thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned to everything that goes on at Bayern Munich. It's only a few days of absence of the pro team. Next Wednesday, I believe most of the Bayern players will return, or will have returned already, to the training facilities, and then we're gonna slowly have the real season begin. Champions League starts on the 16th of September, and whenever that starts, you all know it, that's when the really busy times begin. We'll stay on Philipp Lahm, Sebastian Rode, and Dr. Holger Broich, who's assisting there for a minute or two, and then we'll say goodbye from Munich Siebener Street. Thanks for watching already, and see you next time. maybe just another word about what we're seeing here, in case you're wondering why Holger Boy, Sebastian Rode and Philipp Lahm are constantly missing the target. They're not. What they're trying to do here is hit the crossbar. It's a very popular exercise with players and apparently with assistant coaches, because of course that's hardest to do. Philipp Lahm, from what I can tell, is up by 2. Ooh, and that was close as well. So what they're trying to do here is hit the crossbar. This is what Sebastian Rode just did, and here we go. Holger Boy too. So you can have a look at this, count and see how many hits the players actually achieve, and if you're very confident, you can try that at home. I can tell you it's really difficult. Thanks again for watching, and goodbye.